Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to this webinar about the Princess Royal Training Awards brought to you by the City and Guilds Group. I'm Michael Osbaldeston here in the City and Guilds Group offices in the heart of the City of London on a chilly sunny day, and I'm joined today by our Chief Assessor for the awards, Paul. Welcome to the webinar, Paul.
Thank you, Michael.
And of course, welcome to everybody who's joined us to hear about how they can make the most about their reapplication for an award. This is one of the series of webinars and workshops that we're doing to help people in their applications this year. So just to set the scene as to what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about what's new in 2018. We're going to offer you our suggestions and talk about making the evidence work for you. Paul is going to offer you some of his famous top tips, and he should know he's the Chief Assessor. And of course, we're going to answer your questions and answers. So if you have questions, and in fact they're already coming in, there's a place on the right-hand side of the screen for you to type your questions, and at the end of the webinar, we will answer them. This webinar will be available online after we've finished, of course. So if you want to hear it all again, then you'll have that opportunity. So moving on to what's new in 2018. Well, the first thing to say, of course, is that we've now combined the application form with the guidance notes. So we've got a single document. It's an online document, and of course, it makes it easier to follow how you actually apply for the awards. But Paul, we've been doing some work between us, haven't we? And you've got some really great ideas and great ways of helping people who are applying for the awards to make it easier for them to understand what we're looking for.
Thank you, Michael. Well, the new application hopefully will persuade people to read through the guidance notes before putting finger to keyboard. In terms of the three hallmarks, what we're trying to do is provide you with a little bit of clarification. Hallmark 1 is really telling us why you did it. This is about the strategy that underpins your learning and development. So what's the rationale for it? What does success look like? Who owns the initiative within the organization? How you did it. So if you've got obviously a strategic view and a measure of what success will look like, how will you deliver? How did you deliver your learning and development initiative? What was clever about it? What was different? What was unique? Give us some insights into how the process worked. Equally important is what was the impact? What came out? What are the results, the benefits for the organization? What are the benefits for individual participants? It could be there are wider benefits in terms of customers and the community. So give us a picture of what came out of it, but also, and we'll talk about this some more, see your application as holistic. The why, the how, and the what need to fit together synergistically, and I think it very much is a virtuous spiral in terms of demonstrating success, because that's what we're looking for. Michael, would you like to talk about the three hallmarks in a bit more detail, please?
Yes, certainly, Paul. And again, as you said, the why, the how, and the what are the things that we're asking for within the three hallmarks. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen, you can download the hallmarks document if you haven't done that already. You can click on that and download that. But fundamentally, the three hallmarks of excellence are, first of all, that training and learning development is integral to your business performance, that the program is designed and delivered efficiently and effectively and in response to a need that you have in your organization, and of course, the final hallmark is that you can demonstrate and evidence success of the organization and on its people of the work that you've been doing. So those are the three key elements of the Princess Royal Training Awards, and those are the things that Paul and the Assessor team will be looking to see that you can evidence as part of your application form. So Paul, just moving over to you, what are your suggestions? How would you approach this?
Well, the start point is if you're reapplying, then it's on the basis that we have asked you to respond to the feedback. And first of all, have a look at your previous application with the feedback. The important thing is that it's about remembering the successes and strengths. The assessor feedback is very much a balanced view. It'll identify areas to develop and improve, gaps, call them what you like, but it's equally important to remember that the assessor will have identified for you, he, she, or we identified as strong points in the application. So it is about a balanced picture. Think of it in terms of the application, the strengths, think about the feedback, and then think about the gaps and how you might start to fill those. The criteria and the scoring system are transparent. We're trying to catch, in the nicest possible way, applicants doing things right, and therefore we set out very clearly in terms of the guidance information and in the application form to tell you what the key points are in terms of providing information. So have a look at those. A number of the applications every year, 2016, 2017, the applicant has put down what he or she thinks ought to be there rather than respond to what's required. The last one is making sure your application tells your story. It is about recognizing that this is something that you are proud of, something that you're passionate about, something you care about. Make sure it is a story rather than a management report. If you read it and afterwards it doesn't really spark any life, then you're missing a trick. It is about ultimately telling us a story in terms of a whole organization activity. The awards are very much around evidence. The frustrating element of assessment is that sometimes an applicant will say, we've got loads of evidence, but it's here. They don't give us enough information to progress the application. We'll talk about this some more. But the important thing here is that each hallmark has to be strong in its own right. We're looking at your application holistically, as you should. And if there are two very strong hallmarks and a weak third, then it falls. So you're looking for a holistic, balanced view. Again, we, and it's not a royal we, myself and colleagues have discussions with a number of applicants in terms of 2017 submissions that didn't progress as far as the applicant would have liked. And sometimes we go through and spend quite some time discussing with the applicant the feedback, both the written and obviously there's the verbal feedback. And the person who ultimately ends up writing the application isn't someone that we've communicated with. And within the organization, somehow the message gets lost. And the applicant does what he or she thinks is best, and it may not be a clear response to the feedback that people have had. The other thing is that I'm very happy to help progress your application if you get stuck. This isn't about if you're worried about the spelling, you phone me up, but it is very much about not being concerned that there are things that you should or shouldn't put in. Talk about it to me, talk about it to the team. As I say, we're trying to help you be successful rather than catch you out. And as you progress your application in terms of preparation, don't leave it all to the last minute. Give yourself time to talk to colleagues, to your colleagues internally about the application. If there are gaps, if there are areas that could be worked on, give yourself time to do something about these gaps. Give yourself time to set out to improve them.
I think that's really important.
Let's talk about the...
Sorry, I was just going to say, can I just underline that making sure the person writing the application form watches the webinar and is part of the communication with you and with ourselves. That seems, when we look at applications, to make all the difference, that the person writing the form has the chance to listen to the webinars, participate in the workshops, and has the conversations with yourself or with the guys here. So that seems to be a really significant factor in making sure people successfully apply for an award. And like you say, we're trying to catch people in, not catch people out. But they are an evidence-based award, aren't they, Paul? And the evidence is a crucial element. And I think sometimes people might forget that. So the evidence has to work for you in terms of the applicant, but it also has to work for you in terms of the assessor. Do you want to run us through that briefly?
Yes, I mean, the assessors are using the criteria which you find in the application form to determine the quantity and quality of the information you provide. So it's important to think about this very carefully, because sometimes applicants provide a range of information and say sort it out for yourself. So make sure that where you have critical points, you indicate exactly where in terms of your evidence you're trying to reinforce a point within the application. It's about encouraging the assessor to want to find out more. The key stage, and I think the differentiator for the awards, is that we validate every application that has merit. And what you're trying to do, and hopefully will succeed, is demonstrating that your entry has merit and is worth investigating further in terms of the validation process. And it's a chance to prove what you're saying. Sometimes, unfortunately, applicants say, we're really good, we're a big organisation or a small organisation, trust us an award. And we're really looking for evidence. That, if you like, think of your application as the key to opening the assessment, the validation, and you need to give us enough to make that process work for you. So it's about encouraging the assessor to want more, but it's also recognizing it needs to be relevant, focused, and tangible. The evidence it needs to very much match what you're telling us. That if you talk about organizational improvement or performance, show us the audit trail that goes with what you said you were going to do, how you delivered it, and the outcomes in terms of what you delivered. So show us how these things link. Sometimes we've had, and certainly in 2017, organization-wide initiatives which showed a significant investment in learning and development and improvements in organizational performance, but it didn't show us how these fitted together. So the ways in which these things fit are key to us progressing the application, and also understanding the causal relationship. Without that, then to some extent we're lost, and so you. It is about the sparking the interest of the assessor, but it's about being realistic. Sometimes the link between an activity and the claim benefits are so difficult to grasp that the assessor would have to fill in the gaps in the application to make it work. So spark the interest, but also make sure that you provide the audit trail or the link between all of the elements. And bring your application to life is something hopefully you're very proud of. At some point it was innovative, exciting, challenging, whatever words you want to use. Bring those thoughts and feelings to the page. That it is about ultimately the passion showing through, not hyperbole, yes, but very much around showing you care and showing the organisation cares, and that people who participated or clients are in really, really benefited. So give us some case studies, give us some people information that make it really an exciting story.
Well, we've got a couple of do's and don'ts that we've gathered together in terms of evidence. And by the way, thank you for sending in your questions. The questions are coming in, so keep those questions coming. We will deal with all at the end of the webinar, but thank you for sending them to us. On the do's, as far as the evidence is concerned, as Paul says, keep it relevant to what you've told us in the application form. Keep it focused. You can indicate that there'll be more evidence available at the validation visit. So think of that tip of the iceberg, which I think is a really good analogy. We can see the tip. We can actually, if we see the tip, we can actually look at other things once we come to do the validation visit. And don't forget to tell us what the evidence is when you're actually putting together your application form. Otherwise, the attachments won't make a lot of sense. Now, on the don'ts, don't repeat what you say in the text. I'll repeat that. Don't repeat what you say in the text, because you only have a very limited number of words, both in terms of the application form and in terms of the evidence. You have to make those words work for you. So don't repeat in the evidence what you've already told us. And really, again, picking up from what Paul was saying, don't attach irrelevant material that actually doesn't have any real impact on the story you're trying to tell, because the assessors won't be able to see the relevance. They won't be able to see how it links into that holistic story. And again, because you've a limited amount of information to give us a limited amount of words, it's a waste of those words, really. So, Paul, in terms of the supporting evidence, now on the application form, we do give examples of the sorts of things that people can provide us with. Do you want to just tell us, as in terms of the assessors, how do these examples make the assessing of the application form easier? How does it bring it to life for the assessor?
Well, I think the point you raised earlier, Michael, is that the information that you provide is key to progressing the application. Think of it, as Michael said, as we're at the tip of an iceberg. If you've got a comprehensive report, it could be an external evaluation or inspection. If you give us a line or two from that, you don't need to provide us the whole report. One of the underpinnings of the awards is we believe you. So if you say, for example, that 67 people attend a program, we don't need a list of the 67 people. If these things are important, you can check those at validation. So where you've got detailed and comprehensive information, part of your challenge and your job is to pick out the key parts that we can then, from the headlines, progress through validation. And what we're looking for is tangible information. The jargon is business metrics, and that could be in terms of your rationale, your strategy. It could be market positioning, it could be demographic issues, and how those impact on business. So give us some business metrics that show, for example, average ages has dropped if you've introduced a program to change your demographics. That you've increased market share, that if you're a dental practice, your patient numbers have increased as a direct result of your learning and development. Give us some metrics. It could be profitability information, it could be sales. All of the information you provide is confidential. Everybody who is involved signs confidentiality agreements. We need, at some point, business metrics which reinforced and clarify the assertions that you're making within the application itself. Charts and graphs are great. Remember that they need to be easy to understand. And I don't mean dumbed down, but sometimes people in organizations who are experts forget that the assessors and the commissioners will not necessarily be experts in their particular field, and therefore we're looking for clear indicative information rather than expecting the assessor to try and interpret in some way. And your application is a closed box. We're not going to go and Google things. We're not going to go and check things out other than what you tell us. Statistics, if you're using statistics, make sure that your percentage, if you're saying you've got a 30% improvement, is anchored. It's 30% of what? So a percentage for an assessor without a baseline is meaningful and will be discounted. Quantifiable and comparative data. So if you are saying you're an exemplar in your industry, tell us how you know. It could be industry surveys, it could be whatever, but give us an anchor point again, which says if you're making an assertion, you've got evidence to prove it that we can then validate. You only need the headline, you only need a line or two from an industry survey. We don't want the industry survey. And testimonials from staff, customers. It's about bringing the application to life, that ultimately this is about delivering for people, through people, with people, however you want to describe it. And therefore somebody saying that this program has been particularly important because I've learned these things, I've applied them in these ways, and this is how the organization is really important. And similarly, customers. We're looking for evidence that brings the application to life and tells the story. But there are limits. One thing that we discovered, unfortunately the hard way, is that we're looking for you to do the editing and make the decisions about what information is provided rather than expecting the assessor to do that. So Michael, take us through what the limitations are, please.
Yes, we have to have limits, and the reason for that is that it's got to be a level playing field. We want absolutely everybody who applies for a Prince's Royal Training Award to have the same chance as anybody else of receiving one. And as Paul said earlier, this is a standard, it's not a winner, so you've got to achieve a standard of excellence, and therefore everybody, regardless of the size of your organisation, regardless of the sector you're working in, regardless of whether you're public sector, commercial or third sector, you have the same opportunity, and therefore the playing field is as level as we can make it. So for each of the hallmarks, you can attach one document of evidence. That can't be more than 2 megabytes, and it can't be more than 500 additional words. So you really do have to work very hard to make this work for you. So following all Paul's administrations too, in terms of making it relevant, making it focused, highlighting the top of the iceberg so we can delve into the iceberg on the validation, because it is really, really important. So those limits are there for a very good reason. It makes it doable for a start. In the first year we didn't have limits, and we're still reading some of the applications now. So this makes it doable for the assessors. It also makes it a fair application system regardless of what size of organisation you are. Now, Paul has put together some top tips, and I suspect as the years go by, these tips will be getting more, but they are very common to the people who are successful in their application form. So, Paul, share your top tips with us, please.
Well, I think our start point is recognizing the application form has a number of purposes. It's about, obviously, explaining what you do. It's a communication tool, and it's a chance to market and demonstrate your success to others. So it's about avoiding over modesty. That sometimes it's, and applicants from the assessor perspective, you'd like to shake them because you can guess from bits and hints. There's a huge story in there somewhere, but they haven't told us. So it is about avoiding being over modest, but it's also avoiding generics and generalities, or the equivalent of "we're really good, trust us, get an award." So it is about delving down. It's about giving a clear picture, but recognizing that you're selling yourselves nicely to the assessors, more importantly to the commissioner. About excellence and achievement, it's very much around demonstrating how and why you're excellent. Is it in comparison to your industry sector? Is it because you've been assessed and inspected by outside organisations? So give us a view as to why you're telling us that you're excellent, and we can believe you because other people have found out as well. The application is the key to opening the door of validation visit. And the key is a really good analogy. Think of your application as a closed box, and until you provide the information, we're not going to open the box and take it any further. The awards are special in that we do in fact validate all applications which are progressing towards an award. It's not about adding to the application. Sometimes, and certainly was true in both 2016 and 2017, applicants have said, we've got loads and loads of evidence, come and have a look. We don't have any basis for justifying the investment in going to have a look. So we need evidence as the basis, for stepping stones, whatever analogy you like, to go from the application form to the validation visit. The assessors will not fill in the blanks. So if they come on a validation visit and we find things that are not mentioned within the application, then as far as the awards process, they don't exist. You can give us a headline and we can delve into a 100-page or a 600-page report or whatever, but if you don't tell us, then we're not going to start anything. It's very much around, as Michael, I apologise for the expression, we both do, it's this level playing field. So what we can't start to do is to rewrite an application because somebody forgot something or didn't put something in. Don't provide unnecessary detail. Well, I think about the 67 people in RG. If we take what you say as true. So if it was 67 people attended, fine. We don't need the list of the 67 people. We don't want lists and details of course content. All we need is a headline, for example, about a program and what it did or what its objectives were, what it's setting out to do. The extracts, quotations, case studies, so if you've got, for example, 20 pages of customer feedback or feedback from a program, then pick out some of the highlights for us. 1 or 2 lines are enough to say that puts this evidence into play, a validation. If it's not there in the application, we can use it. If it's there, then we can work with you on taking it further.
That's good. Thank you for that, Paul. Sorry, I was going to say these top tips are really important, but of course, you're there to help. We're here to help. We're very happy for people to contact yourself. Obviously not daily, but we will put people in touch with you. The team here are happy to help, and as I say, we're trying to find reasons to recognise excellence, and we're trying to encourage excellence and demonstrate it across UK PLC because it's such an important thing for us to do. We know there is such good practice out there, and the people who received the awards over the last couple of years, things are telling about really are important and making a significant impact and difference. So it's essential that we do that. So here in the office we have Remy and Laura who are here to answer questions. You're available, Paul. I'm available. So we are very happy to do that. I want to just draw attention this year to something which is different. We will be offering more webinars, and in fact the next one's on the 1st of March, but we're also offering a series of workshops around the UK. We have the first one in Belfast on the 21st, then we run through Gloucester and London and Warrington. And if people want to attend one of those workshops and meet some of the assessors in person, meet the team, have a chance to work with us for a couple of hours, then go online, register for the free workshops, and you'll be very welcome to come along. And we know from what people are telling us, we know how popular they are, that people will be finding those a really useful way to come along and challenge themselves in the presence of the Princess Royal Training Award team. So we are now moving on to your questions, and we've got a couple already. So I'm going to read the questions out, and between Paul and myself, we will answer them. The first one I'm going to pick up is on the word count, and it says the words available in each section is very small, and can we exceed it slightly? Well, we've said in the past you can end a sentence, but don't start a new paragraph. Paul, would you agree with that?
Yes, that's fair. I mean, it is about not being silly about it. So we'll work with you. It's just that on occasion, the excess has been about another 200 words. So it is, from my perspective, about equity, that if we allow one person a lot more, then we've disadvantaged somebody else. So it's very much around keeping the balance between being sensible, but also being fair.
And I think back to the tip of the iceberg, Paul, isn't it? It's drawing attention to the fact that there is more to come. So
Yes.
you don't actually have to write the whole lot out. So it's drawing attention to it. So, and the numbers are, we've looked at the numbers very carefully, and it does work. So although it is a challenge, it's a challenge which is actually overcomable in terms of focusing and making sure what you present and using the evidence carefully to support what you're saying and draw the assessor's attention to your organisation. I think the other question is,
Michael, can I?
Yes,
can I just say that you raised I think the point that you raise is particularly important, because it's about seeing the application holistically. That it is about obviously responding to each of the hallmarks, so seeing your evidence as part of the whole application. So it all needs to fit together, and that's, I think, is key. Sometimes the additional evidence seems to be very much an afterthought. You need, in fact, to build it into your application completion rather than, oh, and I'll put a few bits on the end.
Yes, I think that's a good point, Paul.
Sorry, you had another question, Michael.
Yes, we did. It's about somebody saying that, in fact, that their benefit is not necessarily a cost-related benefit. It's more about quality, and it's about satisfaction of the person at the end of the line. And I think we'd want to reassure them that, in fact, providing evidence of that satisfaction is what we're looking for. It doesn't have to be a business benefit in terms of a cost analysis. The benefit can be actually quite more sophisticated than that. Paul, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, there isn't a best. We're asking for appropriate metrics and supporting information. So if and we have a number of, for example, not-for-profit organisations applying successfully, so it's whatever the measures are that are relevant to your organisation. The question that always the assessor will ask is that if you're showing increased customer satisfaction, why does it matter? And that's really the issue, that you've got more satisfied customers. A so what issue? Does it mean in terms of increased sales? Is it in terms of market penetration? It's taking that stage further for us, that says this is a means to an end. So tell us what the end is.
Yes, it's helping to understand that the relevance of the metric against what you're trying to do in terms of the program, isn't it? So whatever you tell us in terms of metric, we've got to understand the implications of that in terms of what you're trying to do through developing your staff further. So two very good questions, and hopefully answered. And obviously, if the people who've asked those questions want more, then please, email us and we'll go into more detail or ring us up. We've had another one about the value of reapplying. Now, how would you answer that as Chief Assessor? What is the value of reapplying, Paul?
Well, I think there's a number of things. First of all, we don't recommend you apply unless we believe the application has merit. So if you, in terms of your feedback, we said reapply, then it's because we think it's great work in progress and it has potential. The other thing is that, as Michael said, we're trying to catch organisations doing things right and use these as springboards for success. And so part of it is trying to help you close the loop, whatever analogy you want to use, because you're almost there. The other thing is that it is about feedback. We do try and make sure the feedback process works, that we're helping you towards publicly clarifying your achievement of the standard. Very often the evidence is potentially there, but wasn't provided within the application. All we're trying to do is provide a steer. Ultimately, it's very much around the applicant's responsibility, but there are no hidden bits in it. If you're not sure, then as we've already seen, please ask and we'll do our very best to help.
Thank you, Paul. And we have a final question here is, if we reapply, is it a different application process? What's the simple answer to that, Paul?
It's the same process, but I think the point that you might want to think about is avoid boilerplating stuff from a 2017 application to a 2018 one. Take the strengths of the application, use the feedback, but start afresh. If there's some organizational background stuff, that's okay. But sometimes, and we certainly saw in 2017, a number of applications which were a lift from 2016, very often the information that being lifted was the bit that in fact caused the problem for the application. So a fresh pair of eyes, I think, is always really helpful. But see the application holistically, and make sure that at the point where you're submitting it, and we look forward to getting the application, you've had a number of eyes look at it, it is fresh, and you're happy with it.
Right, thank you very much indeed for that, Paul. And in fact, that brings us to one final tip, is to get somebody to read it who hasn't actually been involved in writing it, because that helps to find out whether you've told a story or not, or whether it's just a series of things joined together.
Yes.
So always get somebody who's not been involved in it, take it home, get somebody else to read it, get them to sort of reflect on it. So we've come to the end of the webinar, and I want very much to thank you, Paul, for your time and for sharing your top tips and for helping us understand a little bit more of the process. I'd like to thank the team here, and particularly Remy, who's been looking after the technology, because goodness knows we wouldn't be able to manage it without her. I'd like to thank all of you who've joined us on the webinar today, and I hope we've answered your questions. If you want more information or advice, please give us a ring or please email us. And do go online to see when those workshops and the other webinars will be. But we have in the past wished you good luck, but I've decided actually it's not a matter of luck, it's a matter of actually putting your application form together in the way which Paul and myself have explained over the last half hour to you. So we look forward to receiving your application form, and we wish you well, and we trust that you'll be successful in your application for a Princess Royal Training Award this year. So thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.